There is a detail connected to your name that was never meant to remain unnoticed forever. It has rested quietly beneath ordinary dates, faded signatures, and numbers that seemed meaningless to everyone who glanced at them. But recently, something shifted. A record that had been forgotten, misplaced, or deliberately left unexplained has surfaced again, and the moment it did, someone thought of you. Do not let your mind race toward fear. This is not a message of doom, nor is it a promise of sudden riches. It is a story about truth, identity, and the strange way the past can leave a door unlocked for years before anyone realizes where it leads. Stay with me, because the most important part is not the record itself. It is the reason your name appears where no one expected to find it. Picture a quiet room late in the afternoon. The windows are narrow, and pale sunlight stretches across a wooden desk covered with folders. Dust rises each time a page is turned. Somewhere nearby, an old clock marks the seconds with a patient sound, as though it has been waiting for this exact moment. A person sits alone at that desk, reviewing documents that were supposed to be routine. Nothing dramatic. Nothing urgent. Just dates, account references, handwritten notes, and records transferred from one system to another. But then their hand stops. Your name is there. Not written boldly. Not placed at the top. It appears in a smaller space, beside a notation that makes no immediate sense. The person leans closer. They read it once, then again. They check the spelling. They compare the date. And in that instant, the ordinary task becomes something else. They whisper, "Why is this name here?" That question is where the hidden story begins. You may have felt recently that something unfinished has been following you, not like a shadow, but like a sentence waiting for its final words. Perhaps you have been thinking more deeply about your future. Perhaps money, stability, or the desire to begin again has occupied your thoughts. You have tried to be practical. You have told yourself not to expect anything from the past. Yet some part of you has sensed that an old chapter still contains information you were never given. What if that feeling was not about receiving wealth? What if it was about discovering why someone once tried to protect your future without telling you? The record connected to your name does not begin with a large sum or a dramatic transaction. It begins with a small recurring entry. The amount was modest, so modest that most people would have ignored it. It appeared at regular intervals and then suddenly stopped. There was no explanation in the main file, only a set of initials beside each entry and one unusual instruction written years ago. Hold until the correct person can be verified. No one in the room understands who wrote it. No one knows why the verification was never completed. But your name is attached to the instruction. The person reviewing the file calls someone from another department. Their voice is calm at first. "I found an old record," they say. "It may be incomplete." The voice on the other end asks for the reference number. Keys begin clicking. There is a long pause. Then the second person says something unexpected. This record should not still be active. The room seems quieter after those words. They search deeper. The account itself is not open in the ordinary sense. It does not behave like a normal checking account, savings account, loan, or investment. It appears to be linked to an older arrangement, something established for a specific purpose, then frozen when certain documents were never submitted. The mystery grows because the original creator's full identity is missing from the digital copy. Only the initials remain. And those initials may belong to someone whose memory has crossed your mind more than once. Someone who rarely spoke about money. Someone who believed love was shown through preparation rather than promises. Someone who may have known that one day you would need more than encouragement, you would need evidence that you had not been forgotten. But before you decide who that person might be, you must understand something important. The deepest value hidden in this story may not be financial at all. A record can contain numbers, but numbers often conceal motives. A signature can authorize a transfer, but it can also preserve an apology, a sacrifice, or a hope that the future will be kinder than the past. The person at the desk opens a second folder. Inside is a photocopy of an old form, creased near the edges. Most of the ink is faded. One line remains surprisingly clear. Beneficiary relationship, to be disclosed upon confirmation. Why would anyone hide the relationship? Why not simply write parent, relative, guardian, friend, or spouse? The answer may be tied to a conflict that happened long before you understood what was at stake. There was a conversation years ago. You may not have heard it, but its consequences may have shaped more of your life than you realize. Two people stood in a kitchen after everyone else had gone to sleep. One spoke in a low, controlled voice. The other kept glancing toward the hallway, worried that someone might overhear. "You cannot put their name on this," one of them said. "I already have," the other replied. "You do not know what will happen later." "That is exactly why I did it." The first person became frustrated. "They may never understand." The reply came softly. "They do not need to understand now. They only need to be protected when the time comes." The room fell silent after that. Whatever agreement existed between them did not last. Something changed. A move. A separation. A disagreement. Perhaps even a loss that made certain questions feel too painful to ask. The paperwork was never finished, and the intention behind it disappeared beneath years of silence. Yet your name remained. You have lived through moments when support seemed to arrive too late. You have watched other people move forward while you had to rebuild slowly. You have learned to survive without depending on uncertain promises. That strength matters. But it may also be the reason you stopped imagining that anyone had once planned something good for you. You told yourself, if something belonged in my life, it would already be here. But life does not always deliver truth on time. Sometimes truth waits behind an expired address. Sometimes it remains attached to a spelling variation. Sometimes one missing document can keep an entire story suspended. The person reviewing the record now notices another detail. Your name appears twice, but not in exactly the same way. One version includes a middle initial. The other does not. That tiny difference may be why earlier searches failed. The system treated the names as two separate people. For years, the record may have been waiting for someone to notice that they were the same. And now someone has. The energy changes here, because discovery does not automatically mean certainty. The person at the desk cannot contact you yet. They need proof. They need to know whether you are truly the person connected to the record. They begin tracing dates, locations, and old references. A familiar place appears, perhaps a town you once lived in, a street you remember, or a location connected to your family history. Then they find a date that makes them sit back. It is not the date the record was created. It is the date the instructions were last changed. And that date falls close to a moment when your life took an unexpected turn. Maybe that was when someone left. Maybe that was when a family relationship changed forever. Maybe that was when you were told a simplified version of a complicated truth. You believed that day marked an ending. But someone else may have used that same day to secure a beginning for you. Do you see why this is not simply about money? It is about what someone chose to do when words were no longer enough. The next page contains no amount at all. Instead, there is a handwritten note attached by a paper clip. The note is short, but the pressure of the handwriting suggests the person was emotional when they wrote it. If this is ever found, do not assume silence meant indifference. The person reading it feels a chill, not from fear, but from recognition. This was never intended to be a cold financial instruction. It was personal. Someone expected the truth to be delayed. Someone knew you might one day misunderstand their absence. And someone wanted the record to speak when they could not. You may be thinking of a particular face now. Perhaps you see their expression. Perhaps you remember the way they avoided difficult conversations, or how they kept important things hidden because they believed secrecy was a form of protection. You may feel tenderness. You may feel anger. Both can exist together. Do not rush to forgive what you still do not understand. But do not close your heart before the full story reaches you. Because the person connected to this record may not be who you first suspect. The initials in the file lead to an older document stored under a different reference number. When that archive is opened, another name appears, someone linked to your family, but rarely mentioned. Someone whose role in your story may have been minimized or erased. This person made the first deposit. But they were not acting alone. A second signature appears below theirs, belonging to someone much closer to you. Now the question changes. It is no longer, who created this? It becomes, why did two people agree to hide it? The answer is buried in a letter sealed inside the archived file. The envelope has yellowed with time. Across the front, written in careful handwriting, are 6 words. To be opened only after verification. The person at the desk does not have permission to open it yet. They must first confirm your identity through another record, one that may contain the missing connection between you and the 2 signatures. They search through birth dates, prior addresses, and legal names. Nothing fits perfectly. For a moment, it seems the trail may end there. Then an old emergency contact form appears. Your name is listed on it. But the relationship beside your name has been crossed out. Underneath the ink, barely visible, is a word no one expected. Not relative. Not friend. Not dependent. The original word appears to be heir. The person at the desk stares at it, uncertain whether the faded letters are being read correctly. They enlarge the scanned image. The word becomes clearer. Heir. But heir to what? The financial record itself does not appear large enough to explain such language. Unless the small entries were never the main purpose. Unless they were only markers, proof of an agreement connected to something else. A property. A trust. A private repayment. Or an obligation someone carried for years. At this point, another employee enters the room holding a sealed storage box retrieved from a restricted archive. The label matches the reference number from the hidden record. The box should contain supporting documents, but its weight suggests there is more inside than paperwork. They place it on the desk. The metal latch clicks open. Inside are several files, an old key, and a photograph turned face down. The person lifts the photograph first. When they turn it over, they see 3 people standing together outside a building. 2 faces match the signatures in the file. The third person is much younger. At first, the image is difficult to identify. But on the back of the photograph, someone wrote a name. Your name. Below it is a sentence dated many years ago. One day, they must be told why this was kept. The room goes still. The old key is tagged with an address. The address does not match any property listed in the initial financial documents, but it matches a location referenced in the sealed letter. The person types it into the archive system. A new file appears. Restricted. Transfer pending. Beneficiary unresolved. Your name is there again. This time, it is not written in a margin. It is at the top of the page. And beneath it is a line that transforms the entire mystery. Release only when the beneficiary learns the truth about the original owner. But before the owner's name can be revealed, the system displays a final alert. Someone accessed this same record 3 days earlier. Someone who had no reason to know it existed. Someone who immediately requested that the file remain sealed. And when the person at the desk checks the identity of that requester, they recognize the name not from the financial records, but from your present life. A person who has spoken to you recently. A person who may already know what is connected to your name. And the reason they are trying to delay the truth is written in the one document that has not yet been opened. The silence in that room became almost sacred. No one reached for another file. No one spoke another word. The only sound was the slow rhythm of the clock that had witnessed every forgotten year, every delayed answer, and every page that had patiently waited for its time to be understood. The person reviewing the records looked once more at the sealed letter, then at the name of the individual who had recently requested that everything remain closed. Their heart filled not with suspicion, but with curiosity. Why would someone from your present life want to delay a truth that had been waiting for so many years? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. A supervisor authorized the opening of the final archive after confirming every piece of identification. Every signature had been matched. Every date had been verified. Every missing connection had finally fallen into place. The seal was carefully broken. Inside the envelope was not a legal warning. It was not a financial demand. It was a handwritten letter. The paper had aged, but the words remained beautifully clear, as though they had been preserved for this exact moment. The first sentence read, "If you are reading this, then time has finally carried you to the place I always prayed you would reach." The room grew still. The writer explained that the financial record had never been created because they believed money alone could change a life. Instead, it had been created as a promise. Years earlier, they had watched someone they deeply loved face uncertainty about the future. They feared they would not always be present to help. So they quietly prepared something that could remain behind, not simply as financial support, but as undeniable proof that they had been thinking of you long before you ever realized it. Every small deposit represented another month they whispered your name in hope. Every signature represented another decision to believe in your future. Every document represented another act of quiet love. They never wanted recognition. They only wanted you to know one day that you had never been forgotten. As the final pages were read, another truth emerged. The person from your present life who had requested the file remain sealed had not done so out of selfishness. They had discovered the record only days earlier. When they realized what it contained, they became overwhelmed. They knew that learning such a deeply personal truth required the right moment. They feared that if the story arrived without its full context, it might create confusion instead of healing. So they asked for a short delay. Not to hide the truth, but to make sure every missing piece could be found. For the first time, everyone involved understood that this was never a mystery built upon deception. It was a story built upon timing. Some answers cannot be rushed. Some gifts become meaningful only after the heart has grown strong enough to receive them. That is why so many years had passed. Not because you had been overlooked, but because your journey was quietly preparing you to understand what these pages truly meant. The final document inside the archive contained one last statement from the original writer. "If circumstances ever separate us, do not measure my love by my absence. Measure it by what I prepared while you could not see me." Those words settled into every heart in the room. Suddenly the financial record itself seemed almost secondary. Yes, there were practical matters to complete. Yes, the records would eventually be processed correctly. Yes, every remaining document would follow its proper course. But none of those things carried the greatest value. The greatest treasure was discovering that love had been working quietly behind the scenes even during seasons when life appeared empty. How many moments had you mistaken silence for abandonment? How many closed doors had convinced you that no one remembered your dreams? How many ordinary mornings had hidden extraordinary acts of kindness that you simply could not see yet? Life often answers those questions much later than we expect. That delay is not always denial. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes it is grace unfolding one page at a time. As the archive box was closed for the final time, the person reviewing everything smiled gently. They no longer saw an unfinished financial file. They saw the story of someone who refused to let hope disappear. They saw evidence that compassion can survive decades. They saw proof that quiet faithfulness leaves footprints long after voices grow silent. And perhaps that is the lesson meant for every heart listening today. Do not believe that unseen efforts are wasted. Do not assume forgotten kindness disappears. Do not conclude that every unanswered question means the story has ended. Some chapters remain hidden only because they are still gathering the final pieces that will one day make perfect sense. Whether your own life contains an unexpected opportunity, a restored relationship, a long-awaited answer, or simply a renewed sense of peace, remember this. Your value has never been measured by what you could see. Your worth has never depended upon what others failed to explain. Your future is not limited by yesterday's silence. Every season carries its own purpose. Every delay carries its own lesson. Every faithful step prepares the next one. So walk forward with confidence. Choose hope instead of fear. Choose patience instead of frustration. Choose gratitude for the blessings already surrounding you while remaining open to the beautiful surprises that tomorrow may bring. And whenever you feel forgotten, remember the image of that quiet room, the unopened letter, the faded photograph, and the promise patiently waiting across the years. Not because those exact events happened, but because they remind us that love often works in ways we cannot immediately recognize. May your path be filled with wisdom when decisions become difficult. May your home be filled with peace that calms every anxious thought. May your heart remain open to unexpected goodness. May every hidden blessing arrive at exactly the right time. May hope become stronger than uncertainty. May kindness return to you in ways that leave you speechless. And may you always remember that every new day carries possibilities greater than the fears of yesterday. If this fictional inspirational story touched your heart, brought you hope, or reminded you to keep believing in brighter days, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need encouragement today, and subscribe for more uplifting stories inspired by faith, hope, and love. Until we meet again, may peace guide your steps, light fill your path, and may every chapter ahead reveal that even the quietest moments can lead to the most beautiful endings.